What's up everyone, I am the Unemployed artist and today I'm going to be walking you through how to build the perfect panel. This panel is fitted with a built-in cleat so that when you finish your painting, it'll be ready and easy to install. So, let's get started. The panel I'm making will be portrait oriented, that is, taller than wide, at a height of 24 inches and a width of 20 inches. Included in my panel is a cleat that will not only reinforce my longest edge, but also make hanging the panel easier. My corners are 45-degree miter joints and will be reinforced with 45-degree corner braces. First, I need to start by cutting my 3/4 inch birch plywood down to size and at a consistent 1 3/4 inch width. This, along with a 1/4 inch face of the panel, will make the overall depth of the panel a solid 2 inches. After I have my pieces cut, I want to put a fresh cut on the end using the miter saw. From that fresh cut, I can then measure and mark the lengths I need to cut down. Before cutting to size, I want to point out that the blade often causes wood chipping on plywood when it hits the last veneer. To prevent this, you can add tape or just use some water to soften the fibers. After I cut my 4 edges to their 20 and 24 inch lengths, it's time to miter cut the ends at a 45-degree angle. This might take some practice, but you want to be sure not to cut your lengths down any more than they already are. You also want to be sure to flip the wood in a way so that the angles you cut are not parallel to each other. After you finish cutting your miter joints, you should have a nice square frame to put together. Add wood glue to your corners and clamp using either a 90-degree corner clamp or spring clamps, which is what I like to use. They do put an indent in the wood, but nothing that can't be repaired later with wood filler. Once your panel frame is put together, you want to add your cleat. I didn't show it here, but you want to cut your cleat so that one side is at a 45-degree angle, which will nest nicely with your 45-degree angle wall-mounted cleat. You want your cleat to be snug, but not tight when fitting into your panel frame. If it's tight, it can bow out your edges. If you need to, trim your ends by taking off small amounts at a time. To install the cleat, I always find it easiest to use ready-made objects as a measuring device. These 6-inch lids work nicely to create a parallel distance from the top edge of my frame. Then I applied wood glue to the ends of my cleat, followed by some brad nails. Before shooting any nails in your frame, it's good practice to make sure you have the right size brad nails loaded. You'll want to make sure that your cleat is level. This would be good to do before adding in the brad nails. Next up, you want to use any scrap with a 1 3/4 inch width and cut down some corner braces. Unlike the dimension of the frame, these don't have to be consistent, but I do like to cut them close in length. Often I'll just make a mark on the miter saw and slide each end to that mark before making the next cut. After you cut your corner braces, position one in each corner of the frame, apply wood glue, and put in some brad nails. Once I got to the next step of sizing the panel face, Stephen decided to cut a broken tree limb down, so I took a break and helped with that. After helping with the tree, I cut the face of my panel down to 24 3/4 by 20 3/4. This leaves me some extra wood on the sides to router off later, so I can get those smooth edges. Now you're ready to apply wood glue to the panel frame. Be sure to rub the glue on evenly. Then, center your panel face back onto the frame and clamp it down. You may need to readjust the face if the clamps slide it just a bit, but check all your edges to make sure there's some overhang to router off before brad nailing the 1 1/4 inch birch plywood face to the frame. In order to router the edges, you'll need a flush bit like this one. It's a 1/4 inch stem and requires a 1/4 inch cullet, which the Ryobi palm router has. It's my first time using this smaller hand router, but it works surprisingly well, although I do wish it had a speed adjustment. The router creates a mess, and I wanted to include some actual footage of me cleaning up. If you notice any brad nails sticking out, you can use a nail setter and a hammer to push the nail in a little deeper. After everything looks good, you can fill in any holes in the frame with wood putty or filler, and then let that dry. After the filling has dried, be sure to sand everything with an orbital sander, making sure everything is smooth. And by sanding, I mean everything, even the back of the panel. You wouldn't want a patron or installer getting a splinter because of your art. After you vacuum the panel surface, or wipe it with mineral spirits, ensuring the surface and edges are free of dust, you can now add gesso to the surface. I like to use Liquitex acrylic gesso, but be sure when ordering your gesso that you're not ordering clear gesso, unless that is what you want. I definitely added too much gesso, but the more the merrier, right? The next morning, after the gesso had dried, I wanted to sand the surface for a nice smooth finish. You can always add another layer of gesso, then wait for that to dry before sanding it again. You can repeat this process as much as you like, depending on how smooth the surface you like to paint on. This panel turned out great. It's ready to be hung on the cleats, and it's ready for paint. Be sure to comment below and let me know what you guys have planned for your panel, and be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.